Doubt is often given a very bad rep in the Christian community. There are many who talk a good talk. They say that they believe in God and that they have never doubted Him, they've never questioned their faith, and that they are just convicted 100%. And if you aren't that way, then you're not a genuine believer, that your faith is weak, and that you're really not one of us, if you will. Well, I'm here to challenge that today. I don't believe that to be true. I won't say that there isn't some exception, because it's only between that person and God. But I know that I have questioned at times, that I have struggled with my faith at times. And I think that that is commonplace, more than you even believe or care to admit, that that is commonplace within the church. And I want us this morning to look at a story today that I believe resonates with every one of us as we strive to walk the Christian life, and if you will, live on both sides of the semicolon that you'll see in our text as the Father cries out, "Lord, I believe, help my unbelief." And so this morning I want us to look at this story, and then I want us to try to apply it to our lives as we look at this lesson entitled, "Help My Unbelief." And so we start with the problem that we find in our text. And in this situation, we find a father who loves his son, a father who, just like the fathers here in the audience this morning, the day that your child was born, one of the greatest days of your life. How that you held your precious child in your arms, and at that moment you felt love, true love, genuine love. You were in love. But we see a father whose child didn't have the easiest life. As a matter of fact, instead, had an extremely difficult life. At first, not knowing what was taking place, seeing his child just seizing on the ground, foaming at the mouth, taking his child to doctors high and low, trying to figure out what's taking place, what's wrong with my child, what's wrong with my boy. No medication could help him. Things only got worse. On one day, he finds his child in the river, about to drown. Thankfully, able to rescue him and save him once again. On another day, he sees his son running into a fire, skin burning, able to rescue him, pull him out of the fire once again. Can you feel the heart of that father? How that he's bleeding inside for his son. That he wants his boy to be like the other boys. He hasn't even heard his boy say "Daddy" in years. But he hears of a man named Jesus. He hears there's a man who can truly heal and cast out demons, cause those who can't speak, to make everything okay again. Oh, he's been disappointed time and time again. But he decides, why not? What do I have to lose, right? And so he goes to where Jesus is. But as he gets there, Jesus isn't there, as he and a couple of his apostles had gone to the Mount of Transfiguration. But he comes across the rest of the disciples of Jesus, who also supposedly had the ability to heal and to cast out demons. And so he brings his boy to the apostles saying, "Help my boy." They try. They try. But again, disappointment. Hope was there. Now disappointment. It didn't work. He had heard how Jesus could heal, how that Jesus could save his son. He's tried. He's been disappointed. But what does he do? Instead of giving up, as so many would have understood, you've tried, you've done all that you can. No, he says, I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay and wait and see Jesus himself. And Jesus comes. And as Jesus is asking what's taken place, the Father, with a glimmer of hope still in his heart, but still breaking with the disappointment that he just experienced, comes up to Jesus and says, "If you can do anything, please help my boy." Jesus, seeing the struggle in his heart, challenges him and says, "If I can, all things are possible for him who believes." And then the Father, in a moment of honesty, a moment that resonates with every one of us as we go through times of crisis, says, "Lord, I believe, but help my unbelief." And Jesus healed his boy. And can you imagine going home that day, hearing his boy say, "Daddy, I love you," after years. And being able to see his boy run without fear of the water, without fear of the fire. His boy just being a boy because of Jesus. Now, did he have perfect faith? No. Not in the sense that you and I think that it was unwavering, that he was completely convinced. Did he have doubt? Yes. He had both. He had faith and he had doubt at the same time. But nevertheless, he came to Jesus with what he had. And Jesus saved and healed his son. That story has always meant so much to me, because I believe that it is our story. Our story as we face whatever the crisis may be in our lives at this moment, in the past, or in the future. We find ourselves time and time again, if we're going to be honest, we find ourselves saying, "Lord, I believe. Help my unbelief." And so let's apply this text this morning. And I want us to first and foremost to understand that doubt is a normal part of a Christian's life. It is. Some examples. Genesis 18 and verse 13 we come across Sarah, who's 90 years old. Now, Dorothy is about to be 85, as we've already picked on her a little bit. But 85, but Sarah's 90. Life expectancy a little longer back then, yes, granted, but 90 years old, and you're being told that you're going to have a child. All right, Dorothy, you're going to have a child. She laughed. She didn't believe it at first. Who would have, right? 90 years old and I'm going to have a child. Abraham, 100 years old, I'm going to have a child. Yeah, right. But you know what? You find her name in Hebrews 11 and verse 11 listed as a hero of faith. Isn't that interesting? She had doubt in her heart at first, but yet she still had faith, and she had the child. At first, in Exodus chapter 4, we come across Moses, the great leader of the Israelites. Oh, when God said, Moses, come, he jumped to it, didn't he? You know better. Read his excuses. But God, I just can't do it. I can't do it because of this and because of that and all these other excuses. And God says, Moses, I made you. I know who you are, your warts, your wrinkles, all of your shortcomings. But I can use you for this. You can be the leader and deliverer of the Israelites. But Moses didn't believe it at first. But we read in Hebrews 11, 23 through 28, he's listed as a hero of faith. At first, Gideon, in Judges 6, 11 and following, Gideon, called to be one of the judges, one of the deliverers of the Israelites from the Midianites at this time. Oh, he was called to go out and to deliver God's people. He said, but God, if you're going to have me do this, I need a sign. And so God said, all right. They worked out an arrangement. God made good on the promise. And guess what Gideon said? I need another sign. Is that you and me sometimes? And then what about the third sign? Right? But did Gideon eventually go? Absolutely. And his name is found in Hebrews 11 as a hero of faith. And so when we read chapters like Hebrews 11, we read about men and women of faith, and we think, oh, they were just these spiritual giants who had it all figured out, who never faced adversity the way that you and I do, who never struggled with doubt the way that you and I do. That's baloney. They were people just like you and just like me. See, I struggle. There have been many times I've struggled with my faith, with believing whether or not God's really going to make good on His promise. Right now, I find myself in such a situation, as you know, with a job hunt. Will I find a job? I know in my heart that I will. But I have doubt. I have doubt as circumstances, things that happen, you start to wonder, is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? How is it going to happen, right? And so you've got that doubt, and yes, I've struggled. I've wondered, where am I going to be in January? And you know, I have all these things about which I worry and these doubts in my head, but still in my heart I know God will provide and God will deliver. So what I'm saying to you is this. You're not alone. I'm not alone. Life is difficult. We're going to face crisis. And when we do, we're going to have questions. We're going to struggle with our faith. And we're going to have doubt. But that doesn't make you a bad person. That doesn't make you a bad Christian. That doesn't make you any less of a believer than you were previously. That just means you're human. That it's real. That you're living on both sides of the semicolon. You have faith and you have doubt at the same time. Number 2. We must not let doubt defeat us, though. And that doubt, when it comes during those moments of crisis, is strong, isn't it? And there are times where we could find ourselves wanting to just throw in the towel, just wanting to quit, just wanting to give up. You could imagine the father of the boy maybe being reluctant to even go to Jesus with all the past disappointments that he had experienced, right? But he didn't let that doubt stop him. He kept on and he kept persevering. You see, we need that shield of faith that we read about in Ephesians 6 and verse 16, because the devil is shooting flaming darts of unbelief at us on a regular basis. And when we are weak, that's when he's the most aggressive, right? And he is going to work on us to try to get us to throw in the towel, to quit, to just give up, to say that God has abandoned you, God has forgotten you, you don't mean anything to him, he can't deliver you, where is he? And there are people, sadly, that buy into that. They lower their shield too much, and that dart of doubt, of unbelief, hits their heart directly, and their faith is destroyed forever. You see, in my struggle, have I considered not preaching? Yeah. That's been there. The devil works on me. You see what I'm saying? Devil works on me and says, just get out of it. Just give it up. But thankfully, there's that passion that Jeremiah talks about. That within my soul, I can't help but speak his word. So I've got that passion that where I'm saying, I ain't going to quit. I ain't going to give up. I'm going to keep persevering. And that's what we've got to be. Because listen, it's tough. It's tough. And we're going to have those doubts, and we're going to feel like, let's just quit. Let's just give up. But persevere, my friends. Keep walking. Keep taking a step, even as small as it may be. Keep walking by faith. Keep walking toward God. Don't quit. Don't ever give up. Number 3. Thankfully, God is willing and able to help us work through our doubts and still accomplish his will. See, in John 21, verses 15 through 19, we see Jesus coming to Peter. Now, if you remember the story, Peter was told by Jesus, you will deny me. And what would Peter say? No, ain't going to happen. I'm not going to deny you. There's no way. Everybody else may desert you, but not me. Guess what happened? He denied Jesus 3 times. Jesus comes to Peter. And you can almost envision this, can't you? Peter kind of standing there to the side and Jesus coming up, putting his arm around him and just saying, Peter, do you love me? Yes, Lord, I love you. Feed my sheep. Peter, do you love me? Yes, Lord, I love you. Feed my sheep. Peter, do you love me? Yes, Lord, I love you. And then at that moment, 3 times, 3 denials. He's having to face it now. But he's not facing it with Jesus rebuking him, saying, you're not good enough for me. You denied me, you're out. Instead, Jesus says, okay, feed my sheep. Keep working for me. Go on, preach my word. Acts chapter 2, who do we read about preaching on the day of Pentecost? That would be Peter, wouldn't it? What about the chapter before? John chapter 20, verses 26 through 29. You see, it's easy for us to be hard on Thomas. I hear a lot of people that really want to pick on Thomas. I don't want to. I don't want to. Because here's why I don't want to pick on Thomas. The other apostles had already seen Jesus with their own eyes. It's kind of easy for them to believe, isn't it? Okay? So don't make it out like, oh, they were any better than Thomas. They had already seen Jesus with their own eyes. And so Thomas hears the word. Now, yes, these are his friends. He's been with them. Yes, they've been honest with him. But we're talking about a dead man who's now living. I saw him crucified. I saw him put into the tomb. And you're trying to tell me he's alive? And then we hear him say, I won't believe unless I see it with my own eyes, touch it with my own hands. Well, Jesus appears to him. Jesus could have appeared, as some would have you believe, to rebuke him and say, how dare you doubt me? Instead, he says, Thomas, see the nail marks. Thomas, touch the nail marks. And then Thomas in John 20 and verse 27, my Lord and my God. And Jesus says, blessed are you, Thomas, for you have seen and you have believed. Blessed are those who don't see and yet believe. And so Thomas doubted. But Jesus worked with his doubt. Peter denied. But Jesus worked with his denial. To forgive, to strengthen, and to still accomplish his will. And so as I think about my struggle again, do I believe that God will work with my doubt? Absolutely. And that God will bring me through and accomplish his will? Absolutely. And in moments when I'm struggling the most, it's inevitable. I'll have examples of his love revealed to me, just to give me that encouragement that I need to persevere. I'm sure many of you have been recipients of a blessing from the Sisters Who Care. I recently was a recipient of a blessing from them. I received a blessing from a member of this congregation, and he knows who I'm talking about. I received a blessing recently on help with fixing my van. And you don't understand how desperately I needed that. Where God continues to show me that He's there. Maybe I don't have the job lined up yet, but He's not abandoned me. It's going to be there, it's going to come through, and it's going to be a blessing. But the difficulty is in waiting. And so I, like the Father, confess, Lord, I believe. Help my unbelief. And I'm sure that's true of us all. The one thing we can be certain of is this. Jesus is the Son of God. He loves us. He will never leave us. He will never forsake us. And He will come through. And so trust in that. Don't ever give up on that. And so as we bring this lesson to a close, I just ask you very simply, do you believe that Jesus is the Son of God? If so, what have you done about it? Have you become a Christian? Have you been living faithfully? Or do you need to make some changes in your life this morning? Whatever the need is, if we can help you in any way, would you please come as together we stand and as we sing.